Today we're going to learn how to make a paper mache abstract sculpture. We're going to start off by tearing some strips of paper. I used some newspaper. And then we're going to mix together a paste, a paper mache paste, using just plain flour and water. It's real simple. You can use just plain white flour and pour in water until it reaches a nice thin pasty consistency. You don't want it to be too lumpy or thick. If it's too lumpy or thick, then it will be really hard to spread onto your armature. This is an armature. An armature is a structure that you build out of a firm material to put under another material to make sculpture out of. I'm making paper mache sculpture, so I chose cardboard for my armature. In paper mache sculpture, a lot of people also choose to use things like balloons, or sometimes people will choose to use a bowl or another shape underneath it and put plastic wrap on top of it and then start building their paper mache on top of the plastic wrap so that the bowl doesn't get stuck to the paper mache. I chose cardboard because I had cardboard in my recycling. And I thought that these two shapes were kind of interesting together, the cup holder and the tube. And then I just started sticking my paper strips into the paper mache paste made out of just plain flour and water. And I kept building them up. Just layer those strips. And I would say make it at least 2 or 3 paper mache layers thick before you consider it done. Also, you want to change directions. If you're building up a structure, it's going to be kind of weak if your paper mache all goes the same direction. So right there, I just changed the direction of my paper mache and built up some circular strips around the structure after I built vertical strips. And it's a good idea, if you want the structure to be fairly sturdy, to build up strips going in different directions. And you can start with whatever shapes you want underneath. Just make sure that whatever you're building, whatever material you're choosing to build up on top of, is material that you don't mind letting go of. So some cardboard from recycling, or a wire armature sometimes people use to build sculpture out of. Especially when they're doing an abstract kind of sculpture, they want to have an armature underneath to make sure that that sculpture is sturdy and holds its shape. Then you'll want to make sure you're building up your base too. You want to start adding paper strips to the base of your structure so that it's solid from top to bottom. And you want to make sure you're covering the whole thing. Then you want to let it dry before you add anything else to it. Once you've built up your structure and you've added all the paper mache that you want to add to the basic structure, then you want to let it dry overnight before you add anything else, like paint it or add any more elements. I chose to do watercolor on top, and I let it dry overnight, let it dry out pretty good. Make sure it's mostly dry to the touch before you add something else. And then I created some other watercolor paper so that I could have some contrasting colors to add to it later. And I added those to the structure, and then I had an interesting abstract sculpture made out of paper mache.